Barnett's theory of coordination fits right in with what we've been discussing and reading about symbolic interaction. He describes coordination as a process within communication and within using those symbols, and he lays out that coordination has to do with our imperfect way of organizing how we communicate with each other. And he specifically talks about where these logics of meaning come from, where we communicate, and the resources of those logics. And what he essentially says is that there's many different resources, and there are many different ways to form those logics of meaning, whether it be culture or race or social economic status. Like, you have all of these different groups that coordinate with each other as they communicate. And through these processes, it can either encourage solidarity or create opposition. And he uses this example of two ministers and a rabbi who discuss the topic of homosexuality. And so each of the views are different. However, throughout the discussion and debate, I believe it was on a TV show, they come to coordinate themselves in a way that they presented their views and their opinions on the topic, and they were able to kind of, well, in the case of creating solidarity or opposition, they kind of just had different views, and in that respect kind of veered toward the opposing aspect of this process. And since they had different views, it accounts for Barnett's assertion that there are these different resources or logic of meaning that people ascribe to, and that's how they coordinate themselves. And this is why he explained that it's often confusing and disconcerting that when people communicate, they have different logics of meaning within them. And he further uses this metaphor of the undirected play, which describes exactly what he's talking about. That you imagine this stage where there's all these actors and people on stage, and there's no director, there's no script. Well, he said that there is a script. It's just not a formalized script specifically, but the actors on the stage will begin to organize themselves or coordinate themselves to make sense of what they're supposed to be doing on the stage. And you'll see different groups forming, and that again accounts for these different logics of meaning or plays, if you will, of what they will act out or perform. And so while all of this is going on, he introduces another subject or a person that is wandering throughout the stage and trying to make sense of where it fits in. And what will happen is that person can either be successful in taking on a role and other people respond to that and coordinate that, which creates solidarity, or it could create opposition, because if that person, well, he mentioned the person to take on the role of Ophelia. If she takes on the role of Ophelia and the other participants on the stage do not respond to that correctly, then she'll probably get frustrated because she can't find the right place to where it fits within a logic of meaning. And so what she can do is she can either continue to be frustrated and wander throughout the stage, or she can reconstruct the meaning of which she's operating. She can change that role that she's taking on and adapt to one of the groups, or even create one of her own. And so with this idea of coordination, Barnett also goes into but examples of non-human coordination. She talks about machines, she talks about honeybees and wolves. But at the end of all of that comparison and very interesting analysis, he finally asserts that human beings are much more complex than non-human things, as we kind of directly related to symbolic interaction, that we are complex and not so simple, so there's so much more to consider as we continue to understand this process of coordination. That's the very basic thing of what Barnett is arguing, and it's good.